camera watches, this is going to get really dizzy from me. Okay.
Hi, my name is Brandy, and this is going to be my persuasive speech. What if I told you that there's a miracle plant out there? I'm not talking about some new health craze, or weight loss craze. I'm talking about a different kind of plant. This plant could completely eliminate, or at the very least, incredibly minimize deforestation. It can be used as a biofuel to help reduce CFCs in our atmosphere. It can be used as a textile, a food, and even for hygiene purposes. Next, I want to give you an analogy to consider. We're all human, but while we're all human, we're not all German, we're not all Italian, we're not all Native American. We all have different races. I'd like you to now apply that analogy to the plant world. The plant that I'm talking about is hemp. Normally this throws up a huge red flag for people. You hear the word hemp, you immediately think marijuana. But while marijuana is a type of hemp, not all hemp is marijuana. What makes marijuana marijuana is a compound called tetrahydrocannabinol, otherwise called THC. This is the psychoactive that gives people their high. Hemp, normal hemp, has an incredibly low percentage content of THC. It does have a much higher percentage of a different chemical that hemp also produces called cannabidiol. This is actually an anti-psychoactive. It inhibits the abilities of THC. So marijuana has a 5 to 20% percentage of THC, whereas industrial hemp, the hemp that I'm talking to you about, has 0.3%. And like I said, industrial hemp produces far more cannabidiol, we're going to call this CBD for the remainder of our conversation, than THC. So why are we afraid to use hemp? It's clearly not the same thing. First, let's talk about the logistics behind farming hemp. So hemp can grow in a variety of climates. Just so long as it has good soil with good drainage, it'll be golden. It's also good for drought areas. Hemp has an incredibly long taproot, so it'll be okay as far as moisture goes. Hemp is also pest resistant. Of the almost 100 known pests, hemp is only affected by 8. It's also good for the soil in comparison to several other crops out there. It doesn't exhaust soil in the same way because hemp, throughout its growing season, drops its leaves. So it continues to hold moisture for the soil, and then as those leaves deteriorate, they also add more nutrients to the soil. A single crop of hemp matures in 12 to 8 weeks. That's just 2 to 3 months. So in a single growing season, depending on where you're growing your hemp, you can get 1 to 3 crops. Now let's talk about what hemp can be used for. First, let's talk about paper. A tree is at approximately 30% cellulose, whereas hemp is approximately 70%. The cellulose is what we use to make paper. So 30% versus 70%, it's a no-brainer. Why would you want to take a tree and remove 70% of its content to get that 30% cellulose, as opposed to hemp, where you get that 70% and you like to remove 30%. In addition to that, hemp paper is going to be stronger than traditional paper. It also has a lower acid content, so it won't yellow with age, and then unlike traditional paper, hemp paper does not have to be bleached. In addition to that, 1 acre of hemp produces approximately the same amount of pulp as 4 to 10 acres of trees. And then when you consider 1 to 3 harvests of crop of hemp in a single growing season versus the 10 to 20 years it takes for a tree to mature, it's an absolute no-brainer. Next, let's talk about textiles. We'll compare hemp to cotton since it's a primary in the textile industry today. The same amount of hemp in comparison to cotton plants will produce 250% more fiber. In addition to that, hemp fiber is going to be stronger, it's also naturally antimicrobial, and it's also an incredibly versatile fiber. It can be used from everything from clothing to towels to canvas to furniture. So it's applicable in numerous industries. Next, let's talk about construction applications. Hemp can be used to create fiberboard, which can be used as an alternative to drywall. It can also be used to make hempcrete, which has a couple of different varieties. The main is going to be used almost like a mortar. It'll be used to pour inside of preformed concrete blocks. You can also use it as an alternative to plaster. It'll be like an alternative to using gypsum dust. It's also used as insulation. Hemp is an excellent insulator. It holds heat incredibly well, but it'll also keep heat out incredibly well. So as an alternative for insulating attics and crawl spaces, this would be an incredible option. We're also going to analyze hemp as a hygiene solution. Hemp oil is is incredibly high in essential fatty acids, so it's got a lot of nutrients to it. So it's excellent to use for soaps, shampoos, conditioners, cosmetics, as opposed to all of the lab-made chemicals that are currently being used for these. So all of those ingredients on your bottle of shampoo or your container of makeup that you need a chemistry degree to be able to read, that could potentially go away. Let's talk about one last thing in regards to hemp, a food source. Hemp produces nuts and oil. So as hemp nuts, you can eat raw. It would be similar to eating like a peanut or an almond. Those nuts can also be dried and then crushed into meal as an alternative to flour. So it would be an excellent option for people that need gluten-free or just need extra protein in their diet, because hemp is incredibly high in protein. It can also be used to make a milk alternative similar to almond milk or soy milk or coconut milk. And just as those essential fatty acids that I mentioned when I was talking about hygiene products, those are also applicable for the food and consumption aspect of it as well. It would be similar to people saying, well, you should eat more fish or you should eat more nuts to get your essential fatty acids. If you increase your hemp intake, it would also provide that protein and those essential fatty acids for you. So now let's consider what this could do for our planet. Hemp is an incredibly sustainable crop. Like I said, 1 to 3 harvests per season, and all of these applications for it. It could help, like I said, cut down on deforestation. It could help improve the output of greenhouse gases, which are causing global warming. There are numerous benefits to using hemp as a crop. The other nice thing about hemp, like I said, it can grow almost anywhere, just so long as it has good drainage for the soil and doesn't flood, it'll be fine. So you could actually use this to help develop third world countries. Imagine having a crop brought in that could, one, be exported as a means of money for your country, or you could use it for food as a food source. You could use it as a textile source. You could use it as a construction source. Imagine how much easier it would be to improve your quality of life. So this is a topic that you're going to hear about increasingly in the news now that, at least in the United States, now that Washington and Colorado have legalized marijuana. It's going to bring hemp into the spotlight as well. And it'll hopefully begin to undemonize hemp, because it's not a bad plant at all. As I mentioned, it doesn't make you high. It doesn't have any of those effects that marijuana has. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, have already started growing hemp. You'll also see other developed nations, such as the United Kingdom, have started growing hemp. It's an excellent source of income if you're willing to make the transition from other sources like trees and cotton plants that we're using currently for the same products. So as this is brought into the forefront, hopefully here in the next few years, keep in mind that this could be an amazing opportunity for us to help better our planet, for our children, for our grandchildren. This way, when they're growing up, they know what a rainforest is. They're not going to just have to see pictures and go, oh, this is something that my mom and dad or my grandma and grandpa could have seen, but it's gone now. You're not going to see people that can't farm their ground anymore because they've been growing cotton and other destructive crops that take so much nutrients out of the soil that that ground is no longer good to grow. You're going to see people with a higher standard of living because this is going to provide opportunities for them. So my big request for you is to do the right thing when this stuff comes around and recognize that hemp is not the same thing as marijuana. That way, hopefully, with a little bit more support, we can help create a better future for our future generations, our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
What do you